This is English class with Olivia. Let's go. Welcome, students. Today for class, you're going to need pencil, paper, a notebook, and the book Romeo and Juliet. Today's class objectives include two objectives. Objective 1 is students will understand and relate to the complex relationship of Romeo and Juliet. Objective 2 is students can complete a worksheet about figurative language in the book. Today, we are going to be reading Act 1 and Act 2 in Romeo and Juliet. We will also discuss complex relationships and themes, and complete a worksheet on figurative language in the book. Before we start reading, we're going to do a short exercise. We need to figure out why Romeo and Juliet's love for each other was so complex. Students will discuss for 3 minutes in groups. Some things you might want to discuss with your group, maybe why their relationship was so complex because of their families. Romeo and Juliet came from two different opposing families. How do you think that changed things for them?
The play starts with a prologue, a short introduction, full of tantalizing hints about what's going to happen. We learn that we are in the middle of an ancient rivalry between two powerful families in the Italian city of Verona, the Montagues and the Capulets. But in defiance of the feud, a young boy and girl from each family are going to fall in love. Spoilers, the prologue says that they are going to tragically die, and by their death, the ancient family feud will mend. Sounds exciting. And so the action begins. In a public square in Verona, a bit of banter between some Montagues and Capulets turns into an all-out brawl. The prince comes in, fed up with the constant fighting in his city, tells them off. Only one Montague does not seem interested in the fight, Romeo. He is depressed because he has fallen in love with a girl called Rosaline, who doesn't return his love. His cousin Benvolio unsuccessfully tells him to get over her. Hey team, just a reminder, if you like this video, please hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell. It really helps the channel out, and our next upload could be on something taught in your next class. Thanks, and back to the video. Meanwhile, in the Capulet house, a man called Paris has approached Lord Capulet to ask for his daughter's hand in marriage, Juliet. Juliet is only 13, so Lord Capulet is a little reluctant, but he invites Paris to a big party that night to try and woo Juliet. Romeo and his cousin Benvolio run into a servant who is sending out the invitations for the Capulet party. They decide to sneak in because Rosaline will be there. Benvolio hopes Romeo will meet another girl and forget about Rosaline. Again, in the Capulet house, Juliet's mother and nurse are trying to convince her to marry Paris. She says she'll think about it, and they go down to the party. Little do the Capulets know that a whole bunch of Montagues are planning to sneak in too. Romeo, depressed, doesn't feel like partying, but Benvolio and another friend, Mercutio, convince him to go. At the party, Romeo and Juliet meet and fall in love immediately. Only after this do they realise they are from opposing families. This can't end well. We hope you enjoyed this Schooling Online production. For more easy lessons on Romeo and Juliet, check out our summary of Act 2. Act 2 starts with another prologue, a short introduction, telling us that Romeo and Juliet are well and truly in love. Then the action begins. Later that night, Romeo is sneaking into the Capulets' orchard to see Juliet. Benvolio and Mercutio try to talk him out of it, but Romeo won't listen. Once Romeo makes it into the orchard, he looks up and sees Juliet at a window. He hides for a bit, watching her, and is completely captivated by her beauty, comparing her to a stunning sunrise. She is lamenting to herself that Romeo is a Montague and that their love is forbidden. Hey team, just a reminder, if you like this video, please hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell. It really helps the channel out, and our next upload could be on something taught in your next class. Thanks, and back to the video. Romeo reveals himself. The two have a long conversation about how much they love each other and actually decide to get married in secret the next day. The nurse calls Juliet back into the house, so Romeo and Juliet say their sweet farewells, excited and in love. The next morning, Romeo meets up with a local monk, Friar Lawrence. Romeo tells him that he has fallen in love with Juliet Capulet and wants to get married today. The friar is surprised at how quickly Romeo has forgotten Rosaline and cautions him against moving too fast with Juliet, but agrees to help them anyway. He hopes the marriage can heal the Montague-Capulet feud. Outside on the street, Mercutio and Benvolio wonder where Romeo is and think he is probably depressed, pining away for Rosaline somewhere. But when Romeo comes along, to their surprise, he is bursting with happiness. They have a bit of banter, showing off their pun skills. Then Juliet's nurse arrives, looking for Romeo. Romeo asks her to pass on a message to Juliet. Juliet is to come to Friar Lawrence's house that afternoon for a secret marriage. That night, the nurse will help Romeo sneak into Juliet's room as her husband. The nurse hurries back to Juliet and tells her the plan. Later that day, Romeo and Juliet get married at Friar Lawrence's house, less than 24 hours after they met. We hope you enjoyed this Schooling Online production. For more easy lessons on Romeo and Juliet, check out our summary of Act 3.
Now that you've discussed this question, I hope you've discussed the challenges in love and why it is so difficult for them because they come from two opposing families. Now I want you to think about, have you ever loved someone or something that you shouldn't? Now let's talk about some key quotes from the book. One quote is, "My bounty is as boundless as the sea, my love as deep. The more I give to thee, the more I have, for both are infinite." This quote is talking about the love that Romeo and Juliet have for each other and how deep it is. He compares it to the sea. Another quote that expresses how complex the love that Romeo and Juliet have for each other is, "Love is heavy and light, bright and dark, hot and cold, sick and healthy, asleep and awake. It's everything except what it is." This quote really shows how Romeo and Juliet are in love with each other but are supposed to feel the exact opposite way about each other. When discussing the complex When discussing the complex relationship they have because of their families, Romeo says, "What's in a name that which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet?" This is expressing how if they didn't have the family names that they have, they'd still be the same people. Now that we're at the end of class, I'd like you to use the last 10 minutes to complete your exit ticket. On a piece of paper, write your favorite quote from Act 1 and your favorite quote from Act 2. Explain why they resonated with you. Please use this time to fully flesh out your ideas of these quotes. For tonight's homework, please read Act 3, Scene 1 and Scene 2. Be prepared for your quiz tomorrow. Thank you.